Hello everybody, this is Dr. Novak again. I thought I'd do a video on, it was a video that someone sent me that I should watch, and I thought it was a very interesting video. I think the particular person who made this is from New Zealand, and the name of the video that he showed was a hybrid plenum slash sponge filter made from cheap plastic pipe. The plastic pipe, of course, is, your plumbing pipe, whether it's ½ inch or whatever. But anyhow, he makes this filter for a Betta aquarium, and it's a hybrid. So in other words, it's not only making a plenum, but it's also a sponge filter, mechanical filter. Okay. Let's remember that sponge filters are mechanical filters. Yes, they become biological, but every filter becomes biological, right? You put a sponge in your tank, it's going to become biological within a matter of a few weeks. So, yes, because they were called dirt magnets. That's the real name of a sponge filter by the inventor. Dirt magnet, because it attracts dirt into it. Just like a hang on the back filter, just like a canister filter, just like any other filter you're going to have. It attracts, it collects dirt in it. That's why they call it a dirt magnet. They didn't really look at sponge filter as biological, because any filter you use will become biological eventually as it ages. Sponges too. If you changed them within a week after use and they got dirty and you clean them and you put it, they wouldn't become biological. They'd just be 100% mechanical. But because if you think I'm wrong, then why don't you try making an aquarium, throw in, 2 inches of substrate of your choice. Don't use a sponge filter. After all, you're using a substrate. That should be enough biological filter to sustain your aquarium. But no, it doesn't, does it? It's not like a plenum, because you know and I know that fluids aren't going to move through it and take care of your biological necessities unless it's filled full of plants, tons of plants. But if you eliminate the plants and you just threw your substrate at the bottom, go ahead, try it without any sponge filters or any hang on the back filters or anything canister filters. Oh yeah, that's right. When I was gone, remember the Lanai aquarium? 2 weeks ran with nothing but a plenum. No mechanical filtration. It ran nothing but a plenum, and when I came back, everything was just fine. Even the canister itself, I tested it out, was just fine. No ammonia, no nitrates, no phosphate, nothing, because it had a BCB bag in it. But it was shut down for over 2 weeks. The aquarium itself, with all the fish in it, did fine. No problems whatsoever. No ammonia, no nitrates, because it kept feeding the fish 4 times a day. I was gone. It never stopped. It didn't know there was a problem and something went kablooey with the Wi-Fi that messed up everything. It didn't know that. So the feeder kept feeding, and if it wasn't for the air pump not being on any kind of timer or anything else, it kept running, and therefore it added oxygen to the aquarium, and the plenum kept running. Now try that, like I said, with your tank. Go ahead, pull those sponge filters out and everything else and run it off of your substrate that you just put at the bottom of your aquarium. Go ahead, try it. You never see anyone on YouTube doing that, do you? Saying, oh, I'm running my whole tank off of nothing. The only time they do that, if they have a lot of plants in the tank, they barely have any fish in the tank, and they have tons and tons of plants. Remember, the aquarium out in the Lanai doesn't have tons of plants. 99% of the aquarium is void of plants. So it still was able to biologically take care of the aquarium. So anything outside that you're using when you do make a plenum, it's just, you could say, icing on the cake or gilding the lily. But when I make outside canister filters, I also put a BCB bag in there because that's what saved the canister filter from going bad. And would you allow your canister filter to be shut down for 2 weeks? And would you put it on your aquarium and just start it right back up? Or do you think that everything in there would be dead? Because it didn't happen with the canister filter that I had because of the BCB bag inside there. In fact, I've even proven on the goldfish aquarium when I used the antique aquarium and I had goldfish in there and I had zero substrate, no substrate whatever. And I ran that to prove to you that just with the canister filter and a BCB bag, it was able to sustain the goldfish with all their feeding and all their mess. I proved it to you. No substrate at all. So, and then when I cleaned the canister and everything, I didn't have a big spike of ammonia or anything because the BCB bag still contained all the bacteria in it. And yes, you can colonize the bacteria back in the canister filter. Or if you want, if you're doing something like that, you can always pour a little Fritzheim 7 or something where the canister filter is sucking in, and you'll be just fine. Even though you changed the canister filter, because you're not destroying that BCB bag. You're not destroying that. You're not taking it apart. You're not cleaning it or anything else. And it maintained a goldfish aquarium with nothing but that, not even any substrate at all. But that was the point I wanted to bring up, that if you think you do not need a plenum, then go ahead. Set up an aquarium, put your substrate in it, a couple inches, an inch, 2 inch, and that's all you should use. Don't use a dirt magnet. Don't use a hang on the back filter and see what happens. Oh, by the way, don't use plants either, because that is supposed to sustain everything. And if you don't trust it to sustain your aquarium when you put substrate down, then why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Because if you're doing it because of plants, not everybody wants plants, and not everybody wants real plants. Some people want artificial plants in their aquarium because they may have fish that dig or something else. So don't be scared. After all, this is what everybody seems to like and advocate. So tell them, if the substrate is going to carry so much bacteria in it, prove to us that it can sustain an aquarium like I've shown you. So this guy here sets up an aquarium, the Aquarium Shed. He sets up this aquarium using a plenum, and he's using as a mechanical filter a sponge. And I thought, what a great idea. You make everything all at once. All you have to do is buy a sponge to hook on one of the pipes. And how he does it is he has the pipe coming up high for your plenum, so the water comes out. And that could be adjusted how slow you want it. And then he's got a sponge filter on there. And then he just determines how much airflow he needs and everything. So we all know that he can increase the airflow because water takes the path of least resistance. So if the sponge has least resistance, it will take it from that. And he shows you how he set it up. In fact, let's see, in his wording, and I'll read it to you. In this accessible aquascape tutorial, I'll show you how to create an affordable, high-tech Betta tank with my new low-tech, do-it-yourself filter design, which uses a combination of both undergravel and sponge filtration to create a fantastic environment for plants to thrive. That's what he'll show you. I think this low-budget planted tank looks epic. Therefore, the picture I'm showing you right now, that is the epic look, and it does. Looks epic. And I hope you agree. Did you know that undergravel filtration means nitrification occurs at root level? And this can have an enormous benefit to your plants. I think that you deserve to do yourself a favor. And if you think that, because I know some of these YouTubers like to cherry pick information. They like to say that every tank I have uses a canister filter. No, some of my tanks don't even use substrate, and the canister only had a BCB in it. Canisters, I always tell people, are hang on the back filters. They're optional because your substrate becomes biological. But you know, they cherry pick their information when they hand it out to people on their YouTube channels because that's the way they like it. But my challenge to them is set up a tank, set it up with an inch or two of substrate. Don't put all those plants in it. Then add a whole bunch of fish in it. Let's see how good that tank does without adding a canister filter or another sponge filter to the aquarium. Let's see how good your tank will do then. Let's see if that substrate will do the job like a plenum will do. It won't. I guarantee it will not do the job. You'll have to start adding plants into it to make it work, or it will not work because fluids will not move through it unless you do a Schober kind of plenum where you have a void underneath it. Then you will be working with diffusion, and you'll be working with your millivolt reading of different millivolts of how ions are attracted into the aquarium and into the substrate. But if you block off those pathways by putting the substrate directly in the bottom, it won't work. But you never see anyone show that, do you, on YouTube? They never show you that, oh, by the way, I set up this aquarium and I put 2 inches of sand in, and I'm not going to put any plants in it. I'm just going to put hardscaping in. And let's see how good it does. Now let's start feeding the fish and add fish to it. Let's see how good that aquarium does. Oh, mechanical, let's leave that out. Let's leave the mechanical out. In other words, a sponge filter is mechanical. That's why they call it a dirt magnet. Let's leave all that out. Okay, because people like to say, well, he uses this. That's my mechanical. That's why I use it. But let's leave it out like I did and see how long the aquarium is going to last or even break in or sustain without getting all screwed up full of algae and everything else. And it will. So I thought this video was pretty interesting as people are learning throughout the world that substrates just thrown at the bottom of an aquarium won't work unless you start adding plants and everything else to them. But even if you did add plants to an aquarium that uses an undergravel, as he calls it, or a plenum, you will come out with better plants because your nitrogen cycle will be happening in that substrate, which is beneficial to the plants because when you get ammonia and you suck ammonia in, that's what the plants want. Without that movement, there's no ammonia, then the plants are going to have to try to use nitrates, which is chemical work, which means they can only do it during peak photosynthesis. Pretty simple. I mean, that's just the way it is. But anyhow, I thought I would do a video. Watch it. I thought it was interesting for those of you who are on the fence or they don't want to buy a filter plate because I don't know, 20, 30 bucks or whatever. Or maybe you have a big aquarium, 125-gallon aquarium, 6 foot long, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, that's a lot of aquarium. You know, I can go to my local hardware store and buy piping. In fact, I'm thinking about actually adding a 125-gallon aquarium where my goldfish aquarium in the lanai is. So that would be twice as long, and it would have more height. All I have to do is get 2 metal stands from Petco, put them together, and I could show a video on how to do that, and add a 6-foot tank instead of a 3-foot tank. And I would do piping then, because a big filter going 6 foot long to buy one, yeah, that's going to cost some money. When I can go to a hardware store and just buy plumbing pipe and probably spend, you know, $15, $20 on some fittings and plumbing pipe, no, I'll just do that route because it will be cheaper in the long run to just use piping for a 6-foot tank and put the substrate then down. The only thing you have to worry about is you don't want your substrate to be sucked up into the piping. So you'll have to solve that problem with, well, you can solve that problem with putting mesh around the pipes. And then you can put your substrate down. Depending on the size of your substrate. If you were using sand or something, you definitely want to put some mesh or something around the pipes so sand wouldn't be sucked into the pipes because it's so small. But if you are using a gravel substrate, depending on the size you made your holes, then you may not have to use it. But I'll cross that bridge when I come to it with the 125. And I figured since the stand I have is already 18 inches wide and 36 inches long, all I have to do is double up on the metal stands, make sure they're even, then have a piece of plywood cut to equal the length of both of them, and then the tank would go on that. Then the tank's sitting on two 36-inch tank stands. And then the breeder tank I wouldn't use anymore. But then you can have a 6-foot tank. Because everyone has said you get a tank for $400 some, let's say a 125-gallon tank. And I forgot what the stand is, $70 some for the stand. They said the stand that comes with the 125, it isn't worth it. It's like a particle board. It falls apart. It's a real cheap stand. So I figured, well, out in the lanai, I'll just use two 36-inch stands, put them together and level them out and everything, because they have adjustable feet, so you can level both stands out perfect and put the 125 on that, because it should hold the weight of the 125 because you're dispersing the weight through two stands plus a piece of plywood or something on top of that to distribute the weight of the aquarium. So that's what I'm thinking about doing come fall time, winter time here in Florida, is extending that aquarium to a 6-foot tank instead of a 3-foot tank. But anyway, that's it for this video. I just wanted to bring that up, that it's a good video to watch to see what he does. I think I'll be using something close to that if I go with my 6-foot, because for me to buy another half for the aquarium, and no, it'd be very costly for a 6-foot tank than if I just use, because I know other people who have done the same thing. That's what I'm saying. And then you can make your bubbler. And then, like I told somebody, I said, well, if I make a long tube and I make it so that's a bubbler, I said, yeah, you can take your tube and spray it with some of that fusion spray and turn it black, or turn it blue, or turn it whatever your background is, and you can put it in the center. So you only need one tube for the whole 6-foot tank. You don't need 2 or 3. Make one tube in the center, paint it whatever color, just the tube you have to paint. Paint it with that fusion paint for plastic. Give it about 7 days to dry. Make sure it dry, and you're good to go. I've used it, and it's non-toxic to fish. That's what I'm going to do. I'll make the bottom. I'll just do that, and then I'll make one uplift tube, or I will use a small pump to pump it if I don't want to use a bubbler. It's up to whatever I want. But one tube for a 6-foot tank would be enough. If you put it in the center, it'll be able to suck the water and keep the substrate open, because I have to make sure when I design something that if another accident happens, the whole tank will not crash. Because yes, I'm going to use the same canister filter as my to keep my turbidity clean, right? I'm going to use the same one with the BCB bag in it, but that's only mechanical to help keep the tank clean, because otherwise particulate matter in that aquarium is constant because of the goldfish. And of course the geophagus are digging, so you're constantly going to have detritus and stuff floating around in the aquarium. That helps pick it up. So that's in a future setup, in the future what I'll be doing this year at the end of the year. So I got a lot of work to do, and moving the fish out of that 40-gallon and turning it into a 125 gallon. And I hope that will help people think that, hey, I don't have to buy that garbage, the whole thing. I can just buy the aquarium and buy 2 metal stands and put them together, and it'll be more than enough for that tank. Because I think the 125 is only 18 inches wide. Well, so is the 40-gallon breeder, 18 inches wide. 36 and 36 makes 72, so that's for your length. It'll be perfect for a 125-gallon aquarium. And the metal stand is held up real good out in the lanai, even with all that moisture. No problems at all. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to take a look at the Aquarium Shed. I'll have a link below so you can click on it and you can watch it. It's very interesting. I like his idea of what he has, but I've heard other people do the same thing, okay, in other countries. They told me what they were doing. They did the same thing, but he came up with the idea that I thought was novelty of taking one of the tubes and putting a sponge filter on it. That way, if you, instead of reaching all the way down at the bottom of the tank to pull your sponge filter out, you just reach at the top, pull it out, and you're using all the same piping. So all you're buying is a sponge. Hey, it's a no-brainer. It's really a no-brainer with the way he did it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you haven't. And till next time, happy fish keeping.